Alright, welcome everyone. My name is Dwight Duffie, and in this brief tutorial we'll review the basic steps for using Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access is the database component of the Microsoft Office suite. We're going to be using the MSJC RDS system, which is a remote desktop services system that will allow us to access Microsoft Access even if we don't have Microsoft Access loaded on our local machine. If you have Microsoft Access on your local home or office computer, that's probably the more direct and easy way to access the software. But if you don't have it, this is a good alternative. In order to access the RDS system, we're going to type apps.msjc.edu using an Internet Explorer web browser, not Firefox or Chrome. We need a reasonably fast internet connection like DSL or cable modem. And when we type apps.msjc.edu, we're going to log in using our Blackboard credential. So we need to have this domain msjc \, that's not a / /, and then I'm going to put in my Blackboard username, and I'm going to put in my Blackboard password. That's different than previous ways of accessing the RDS at MSJC, but everything now uses the Blackboard username and password with the notable with a notable caveat that you need to have the MSJC / before the username. And we'll give this a moment to install, depending on your internet connection and the speed of the server and other variables. This could take a minute or two. But hopefully in short order we'll have a list of the available applications. These are all applications that are available to run through the RDS using a web browser. So the RDS is a way to run applications remotely. Now when I click on Microsoft Access 2013 up here in the corner, I'm going to need to connect again using the credentials. And this time we will probably have to type msjc / for the username, whereas the first time it was there for us. So let's just give this a minute to spin up. And when you're using the RDS, you have to be patient. So msjc / and then my Blackboard username, and now my Blackboard password, and that will now actually install an instance of Microsoft Access 2013. It's running on the RDS server remotely somewhere on a college server, and then once the instance has installed, we'll be able to see and access the Windows application. And here we have a little problem with the certificate. I don't think that's my problem, and I do trust the source, so I'm going to go ahead and click yes, and that's something that we'll have to inquire about. Give me a chance to catch my breath here. Have a sip of water. Alright, and down below it says connected to remote app and desktop connections. Your computer is connected to. There's a domain. You can see now Microsoft Access is actually coming up just as it would on a local machine, but it shows that I'm running this through the RDS. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on blank database. It's kind of the middle one here, and you can see the screen refresh is a little bit slow. I can give this a name. I can call this maybe practice 1. Notice it's going to put it in a My Documents folder on the RDS server. That's different than My Documents on your local computer, so you want to keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and click on Create. And it feels a little bit sluggish, but that's okay. When we come into this screen here, if you look at the database objects, all there is kind of a shell for a table. We don't have any form or report or query, which are the three other objects that we're going to create. So when we're done, we want to have a simple table, and then we want to make sure we know how to create a report, how to create a form, and how to create a query. And that's all we're going to try to review in this tutorial. All right, so what I want to do from this point is I want to change my view up here in the top left, and I want to go to design view. And once I'm in design view, I'm going to give a name to this table, and I'm just going to call this table for our practice. I'm going to call it contacts, and it's just going to be a simple table to keep track of some of the contacts that I have. Just the name, maybe the age of some of a contact, and maybe a yes/no field. We just want to keep it very simple. So here we go. One thing I want to do is get rid of this primary key for the first field. So I'm going to click on the big key, and that toggles the key off that's over here. And now I'm going to, instead of having ID, I'm going to type in name. Then I'll tab over. Name is a reserved word. Okay, so that let's, instead of name, let's do, probably be better anyway, we'll do first name. And then I'll come over, and for the data type, I'll click on the drag down, and I'll do short text. And then down at the bottom here for the field size, I'm going to change that to maybe 30 characters for the first name. That's more than enough. Now I'll come here to the next row, and I'm going to type last name. And short text. And again, maybe the last name can be 35 characters. I'm going to type in age. We'll change that to a number. And personal. Whether this is a personal contact or not. And that'll be yes, no. And you can see the different data types. There's date and various other possibilities. Currency. But text and number, yes, no, currency, date, time, those are the main ones that we would typically run across when we're creating a database. So we've created 4 fields here. First name, last name, age, and personal. This is what we call metadata. This is not the actual data. This is just data about the data. And you can see over here, we call this table contacts. So if I double click on contacts now, it's asking me if I want to save it. I'll say yes. And now I'm in a column or table form where I can begin typing data in. So I'll put in my name, Dwight Duffie, and I'm shamelessly 49, and I'm most assuredly a personal contact. And then we'll put in Bill Gates, and I don't know how old Bill is, but let's just guess that he's 57, and he's not really a personal contact. And Tina Johnson, and she's 35, and she's not a personal contact. And then Mike Smith, 22, and Mike is a personal contact. Okay, so that's the way I set up a table and start putting data into the table. Just simple columns with rows being the records, and we have 4 fields here. All right, and we said we wanted to go through the steps of creating a form, and then also a report, and then how to run a query. And I'm kind of looking at my data here, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got Bill Gates. Let's put in one more of a little bit older contact. I'm going to say Jan Jones, and she's going to be 65. All right. So I'm going to come up to Create. There's a Create tab, and then from Create tab, I can go to the Form Wizard. I can also come over to the Report Wizard. So those are the 2 buttons we're going to use to create our 2 objects. So Form Wizard is just a matter of clicking on Form Wizard. I can click on the double arrow to select all the fields. I'm going to click Next, and then Next. Give it a name. I'll call this my contact data entry screen. I'll click finish, and now you can see that it's actually created what's called a form, and now I have a form over here on the left side. And the form lets me click through the data, and then I can also type in new data. Jeff Anderson, and let's say Jeff is about 40, and he's a personal contact. And I can go to next. And what you want to do is you want to refresh after you've put items in using the form, and then you can go back to contacts, double click on the table, and if you refresh here, then Jeff should be added to the table. So now we have a table and a form. We're next going to create a go to create, and we're going to create a report wizard. We're going to use the report wizard to create a report, and again we'll select all the fields. Next, click next for the grouping. I'm going to sort it by last name, so if I have two Smiths, then they'll be together, and then if I have Adam Smith, will be before John Smith, will be before, you know, Wes Smith. I think that's enough for sorting. Tabular is fine, portrait, and then I'll call this my contact list. And when I click finish, it'll go through, create a nice looking report, and now I have a report over here on the left side. And the last thing I wanted to create, the last object I wanted to create for my database is a query. So I'm going to close my report, and I should also close my contact and other items. I get all the way back here to my table. I'll even close that. So I'm back here, and I'll go ahead and click contacts again. I'm going to go to create, and I want to, this time I want to select query design, not query wizard, but query design. And then click add for contacts. Puts that up here. Close this window here. And then I'm going to select the fields that I want to show up in my query. So I could have first name, double click on that. Last name, double click on that. And then let's say age, double click on that. So I've got those selected down here. And now under the criteria row, and this is the key, critical, probably the crux and hardest part of doing this assignment. Under criteria, I want to have some criteria that will narrow the number of records. So I'm going to say greater than or equal to 55, let's say. And that should pick out only the contacts which are greater than 55. And then I click on the little run, which is the red exclamation point. And there we go. I had Bill Gates and Jan Jones, 57 and 65. And then if I right click and save, and I'll call this my senior contacts. And click OK, and now I have a query called senior contacts. And I can add more contacts using the form, and as long as I remember to refresh and then refresh under the contacts, I can view my data using the report, and I can always run a query that will show me the senior contacts that I have in my database. All right, and it looks like I got some spyware over here on this computer. I'll get rid of that for now. All right, so just a word here. Remember, I'm in the RDS, and if you look at the path here, it's saving it to my documents. So if I save, by default, because I'm using the RDS, it just saved it to the RDS. So let me go through one final point here, and that is, if I wanted to submit this via Blackboard or some other means, I would access or exit out of Microsoft Access. And then when I'm at this point, I could either use my documents to be able to see that file and then copy it to my flash drive on the local machine, or I could fire up Internet Explorer or even Firefox on the RDS and then attach, log into Blackboard from the RDS and then attach the file, and the RDS system would be able to see my documents there. from here. If you just log in from your home machine, you won't be able to see the My Documents folder because this is on the RDS. I hope that makes sense. That's a little bit tricky, but I'm just saying that it may be easier at this point if you finish the assignment and you decided to use the RDS. Just go ahead and go to Blackboard and submit your work via the browser, and then you'll be able to see the file. Otherwise, you need to go to My Documents, and then again, you'll connect, use MSJC /, and then you'll need to browse to My Documents and find the file, and then you can copy it to your flash drive using the My Documents folder. All right, so that'll conclude this tutorial. I hope that was a good introduction for everybody for using Microsoft Access. We created a single table, we created a report and a form, and we created a query. So pretty good day's work.